Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Rev. On today's episode we're going to be reviewing the iconic Subaru Impreza WRX STI PPP Widetrack. It's a lot of names that. So under the bonnet of the Subaru, this has a 2-litre turbocharged engine producing 305 brake horsepower and around the 400 Newton meters of torque mark. It has that thanks to the Prodrive Performance Pack, because that punches the BHP up as opposed to the standard car, which comes with 265. So this car will get to 60 miles an hour in under 5 seconds. So again, you're looking at around the 4.5 second mark, and it'll keep going all the way to around 150 miles an hour. So considering the weight on the car and the power, it's definitely a fast car. This is a car which needs no introduction. A car which has attained an elite status throughout the car community. Once thought to be loud and obnoxious, it's now a treasured Japanese classic. With its recognisable bonnet scoop and the bug-eyed styled headlights, if by chance you see the car before you hear it, you'll know exactly what's coming towards you. The Prodrive alloys are exclusive to the Prodrive models, and that character-defining spoiler is a staple of any Japanese classic. As we move on to the interior, the first thing you'll notice is the blue bucket seats with the STI motifs stitched into them. Now, this isn't the kind of car you'd buy if you're expecting luxuries. I mean, the car does have electric windows, which is a plus for this, but realistically, it's what's under the bonnet what really matters. You can carry passengers in the rear of this car, but it's not ideal if you want to go as fast as possible. The car does come with a really practical boot, so you can use it to throw all the shopping in the back, but never mind that, listen to this. So back in '92, someone at Subaru had a brilliant idea to launch their cars into the World Rally Championships. So the WRX came about. The WRX actually stands for World Rally Experimental. WRX. It must be a capital X or something, right? So they went on and won a few championships, and then in '94 they launched the STI. So they took the already brilliant car, the WRX, changed a few of the bits on it, so like turbos and stuff like that, and altered the dampers, the suspension on the car, and they were left with this iconic car. And I don't think anyone out there has a bad word to say about it. In all honesty, I don't see why they should, because this car, no matter what you're in, no matter what car you're in or what you're comparing it to, this car is... This is different. This is a different breed of power. As the Japanese cars always have been, these aren't refined, these aren't sensible, these are just a car designed for brute force, power, and the way they perform. The STI is one of them cars that's always been rivaled with some of the best Japanese motors out there. And let's be honest, the cars it's comparing it to, the likes of the Skylines, the likes of the Mitsubishi Evos, all in all are both brilliant cars. So the PPP, the Prodrive Performance Pack, what that was, so you went and paid £2,700 to Subaru, and they took an STI and made it more of a track-bred monster. So they mapped the engine up differently, changed a few of the breathing modes on the car too, altered the exhaust system, and this was the result. So an STI which was already a brilliant car, it made it into an even better car. Now with this era of Subaru, so there was 3 different variants. So the first models that came out were the bug-eye ones, so the ones with the circle headlights. They were the first ever ones to come out. And then we had the blob-eye, which is what I'm in today, and then the later models were the Hawkeye, so they've slightly altered on the headlights. For those that kind of swear by them ones, they actually changed the engines in the STI models on them from the 2 litre to the 2.5, which all us car guys know they ruined the engine in that model, because the 2 litre engine, which is what this one is, this is a phenomenal bit of kit. The Widetrack model, which again this happens to me, so not only was it a PPP and an STI and a WRX, the Widetracks, that's actually for the stance on the car. So the rear setup is actually on a wider stance than say a normal STI, which is hence why it's called the Widetrack. Pretty self-explanatory, right? I have just purchased this car and it was parked up for about 2 months. This morning I got into it, started it, hats off to the car, started up first time, no kind of battery issues, nothing like that. Warmed up straight away as well. There are a few bits on the car which need addressing. The clutch is slipping very badly, which has nothing to do with me. The front splitter is cracked, which again, nothing to do with me. And the back brakes need changing. Well, I'm going to get all the brakes done on the car anyway, because it's cheap enough to do them on this. It's not unrealistic, and obviously in the real world they'll help you stop the car, right? So you need some good brakes on there. Now I have to say, being behind the wheel of this car, you do feel that kind of racing pedigree, that rally pedigree in it, because it just encourages fast driving, and honestly it's such a fun car to drive that every time you get in it, it does put a smile on your face. Let's get some sound in here. So we're going to drop it second gear, come in boost, and as we go through the tunnel, right, we're going again through them. Definitely going to get your license taken off you. So if you are a bit of a maniac driver, honestly, I'd probably stay away from this, because this is a beast. I have to say, right, the Subarus I've always held them close to my heart, like the Subarus, the Evos, because these are the cars I've kind of grown up with. And having owned the Evo as well, the Evo was just a slight bit more aggressive than this, but that's like saying you'd rather sit in a cage with, I don't know, a lion as opposed to a tiger. So it's the same thing, do you know what I mean? Subaru, hats off to you, man. Hats off to you, because this is a machine. Now, in terms of maintenance and fuel-wise on the car, so Subaru recommend that you change the oil and stuff like that every, I think it's 4,000 or 6,000 miles. But depending on how often you drive the car and kind of how enthusiastically you drive the car, that will determine your kind of service intervals on it. So I mean, personally, the Subaru I used to have, I ran that, and every kind of 8,000 miles I gave it an oil service, and then every second service I gave it a major service. But that's just my kind of personal preference on that. It's actually not that bad to maintain. So an average service on this, like an oil service, a lot of people tend to do it themselves because you actually can, but yeah, if you take it to say like a specialist, a routine service will probably set you back between like 250-300 quid. Get a bigger service done, and that can go up to about £500 or so. But again, as I said, depending on the parts you use and stuff like that, that does determine the price on the service. In terms of fuel wise, so a full tank on a car like this, you're looking at around £70 of free power, which will take it to the brain. If you drive it sensibly, it will be economical. It'll keep it below the turbo, and it's like a normal 2 litre car. But the minute you do kind of put your foot down and you're driving the car in the turbo range, you do see that needle come down, and you will be said, it's one of them cars where it just encourages fast driving. Not that I'm condoning fast driving, because that would be silly, because you can't drive fast on public roads, right? Let's move on to 5 things I really like about the car. So point number 1, it has to be the raw aggressive power the car has to offer. Now it weighs next to nothing, and 300 bhp under the bonnet. Pair that together and that's a recipe for brilliance. Point number 2 has to be the unique styling on the car. So this kind of era of the car, so whether it's the Evo, whether it's the Subaru, you can tell they are iconic, with the massive spoilers on the back and the overall kind of look on them. Point number 3 has to be the racing pedigree behind the car. Now this car has won so many World Rally Championships that is actually brushed off into the road going versions. Point number 4 is the iconic Subaru noise. Point number 5 is the car has a character, one that you can get attached to pretty damn quick. And here are some bits I don't like about the car. The first one has to be the fact that you have to maintain this car so regularly. I mean, it's understandable, it's a performance car, but you're looking at maybe 4,000 to 6,000 miles between services. Second point has to be the safety aspect. Unfortunately in this car, there's not a right lot.
Point number 3, this.
And the final point has to be, these are prone to rust, so if you are thinking about storing it outside, be prepared to factor some costs towards painting it up. So there we are guys, that is the review for the Subaru Impreza. Now you know as well as I know that in the next 5 years this is going to be quite the collector's item, so if you are in the market for one, I suggest you get your wallet open and buy one straight away. If you have liked today's video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and feel free to drop any comments. And I've got to say, all the support so far from the guys here at the Rev channel, it's been duly noted and we appreciate it so much, so thank you very much for that, and stay tuned, we'll see you next time.